That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about The Watcher, the new Ryan Murphy television series, 7 episodes that premiered on Netflix October 13th, 2022. Please be sure not to confuse it with the 2000 film of the same title, which Keanu Reeves was tricked into doing.
Why do you say he was tricked?
Because there's a really weird story about it. It also stars Marissa Tomei, and he basically was signed a contract but didn't realize what he was signing or something, and then so that the marketing of the film wouldn't be hurt, he was barred in court from saying anything about it until a certain amount of time later.
Oh.
It's a bizarre story.
Okay, well, this one, we received many comments asking us to talk about this series, but you had already asked me if I wanted to cover it previously, and I had skipped it. But what made you want to watch it anyway?
The return of Mia Farrow, who hasn't been in film or television moment since Todd Solondz's 2011 title Dark Horse.
I think she's the best part of this series.
I agree. I did quite enjoy her.
But I guess I didn't realize it was a Ryan Murphy thing, so I assumed it'd be like a more serious, like, psychological thriller, something of that nature. But this series is like trashy fun.
Yes, it is definitely, as you've said in our discussions about it, a soap opera,
Yeah.
a supernatural tinged soap opera, maybe. But I had hopes for it because of a really interesting cast, as a lot of Ryan Murphy productions are. But Murphy tends to excel in areas where things are based on true stories, which this kind of is, like his American Crime Stories. But where it seems like the liberties taken might be a little less. But since these people aren't really known or notable in pop culture, this is just all over the place.
Okay, the basic story is there's a married couple played by Bobby Cannavale and Naomi Watts.
Nora and Dean Brannock.
They have like a teenage daughter.
And son.
They have a son too?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Ellie and Carter. Carter has nothing to do.
I don't even remember him. Okay.
I just remember that he made it on the basketball team.
Wow, I totally forgot about him.
Mm-hmm.
They buy this beautiful home somewhere in New Jersey, in like this really nice neighborhood.
Westfield,
New Jersey. And weird things start happening. Namely, they start receiving letters from someone called the Watcher. And it's clear this person is sort of fixated on the house and then starts threatening them. Weird things start happening. Like clearly someone's broken into the house. We can get into the details, but a lot of weird things start happening, which results in Bobby Cannavale's character trying to figure out what's going on, obviously. He hires a private investigator / jazz singer who also is dying of cancer.
Theodore Birch.
That was the most ridiculous character in this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the bulk of 5 episodes is just them trying to figure out. And so we get pushed in every direction, from like the local detective to the real estate agent played by Jennifer Coolidge to Mia Farrow and her son, who appears to be like some Igor type person.
Brother.
Oh, that's her brother?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Jasper, played by Terry Kinney. Mm-hmm.
To a previous owner of the home who was involved in like a mass murder of his family. It's just going in every direction. But as the series goes on, all of those are sort of debunked and revisited. Mm-hmm. But to answer the question, who is the Watcher, who's threatening them? The answer is we'd never find out. But what ends up happening is, because it also seems like for several episodes we think like, oh, someone's doing this to lower their property value so they can buy this house.
Mm-hmm. This coveted property.
So Bobby Cannavale and Naomi Watts end up selling their home and leaving. It's important to know Bobby Cannavale is a lawyer, which we need to talk about because he does not behave like someone who understands the law. And Naomi Watts is an artist. And after they leave, part of their story is that they're having financial troubles. But after they move out, we're told that Naomi Watts' character is like the hot new thing on the art scene, but she makes like pottery.
Ceramics? I wasn't quite sure what
so
she did.
Now
we don't show her at work.
No. So they're financially they're doing well. They've left this house, but the final scenes of the series are that Bobby Cannavale's character is at the therapist office, and he is obsessed with the house. He can't stop talking about it. His therapist is telling him, like, you keep bringing it up, you don't need to. And then we see that a new family has moved into the home. And the final shot of the film is Bobby is in front of that house just staring at it, and the owner's like, hey, what's up? And Bobby's being weird and then says, yeah, I'll see you around. And then we see the man, the new owner, check his mailbox, and there's what we assume is a letter from the Watcher. But something that kind of throws everything off is when Bobby, Cannavale, and Naomi Watts sell their home, they sell it to Jennifer Coolidge, basically. And when she moves in, weird things start happening immediately. She gets a letter. And then we see, like, a cloaked figure.
I don't think she even has time to get a letter, does she? She's only in there for 4
No,
hours.
she does get a letter, remember? Because she reads it and she's screaming and she runs out of the house. She does get a letter, 100%. Because then her dog is dead when she gets down to the bottom of the stairs.
And that man comes up from the
And then
stairs.
some, like, person in a hood comes up from the stairwell. So then it's made clear that there is someone, we just don't know who. I don't know what's the best way to approach this. I just wrote down some sort of like key things that I thought were like memorable moments.
Sure.
Okay, first off, we find out that there's a previous owner named John Graff.
Who's played, well, there are identity issues around this character, but he's presented to us in the form of Joe Mantello, who is the director of Love, Velour, Compassion, and the Boys in the Band remake.
So we see that he used to live in this home with his wife and 2 children. And he becomes, and his mother. So he has like this very overbearing mother who helps him buy the house for his family, but she lives in the house. And it's just an awful place to be in.
A boozy, undersexed wife.
And that man loses his job. So he pretends to go to work every day, but really he's just going to the bank to withdraw a little bit of money from his mom's account to show that he's working. And one day he just can't take it and kills everyone in the house. But we never find his body. Like when the police come, all the victims are dead, like lined up in a little pattern, but he's missing. So then it's made to seem like maybe he escaped because there are tunnels under the house. And then the way it's presented, that same actor shows up one day saying that he's the home inspector for Bobby Cannavale's new home that he's renovating. So then we're thinking, well, maybe it's this man who used to live here. But then that kind of gets debunked because we're not clear that is the man.
And then, again, made more ambiguous. Yes.
Then there's the Preservation Society run by Mia Farrow.
Yeah, basically just Mia Farrow and her brother.
And her brother. And she has so many... Everything out of her mouth is funny. Because she looks crazy.
She looks insane, but...
She has pigtails. Her skin is so pale it's almost translucent. She looks very fragile. And she's just like that neighbor who's like everything... She's just nosy in everyone's business. And she's kind of a nightmare.
She is, and it almost feels like she's playing on her own persona. Because there's one point early on where she kind of walks away and says to herself, "Save the trees."
Then there's a neighbor couple who we're told like commit suicide.
Margo Martindale and Richard Kind, who are also nosy Parkers and are very bizarre. Because I think you missed the sequence where we're introduced to them. Because a piano arrives with Naomi and Bobby because their daughter's supposed to play piano, and right away they're outside watching. They're like, "Oh, this is a problem." And then we see them picking the arugula on Bobby Cannavale's lawn, and he tells them to get off, and she acts like basically like the woman in that video about the rhubarb lady.
Oh yes. Then, the Preservation Society is concerned with the facades of all of these historic homes, but Mia's character is also very obsessed with the interior design. And Bobby Cannavale's character is like altering the home. So at one point, her brother breaks in because they've done something with the dumbwaiter he doesn't like, and he's broken something. So I thought that was very interesting. I guess we could talk about maybe what I would have preferred, but...
Well, it feels, again, a little bit like a missed opportunity in talking about white fragility, because...
That's what I thought it was doing.
That's what I thought it was doing, and it kind of veers in that direction sometimes, because the Brannocks, Naomi Watts and Bobby Cannavale, are so... Their characters are so annoying and so finicky and picky, and it's just like, if you just leave well enough alone. Like...
Well, moving on. So a big feature of the story is there used to be a school teacher, this gentleman, who started... Like, he would do this exercise where the kids would write a letter.
Ode to a house.
Ode to a house.
Because he was poor and he always fantasized about living in a friend's house.
So then that's sort of made to seem like the origin story of the Watcher. Like that's where these letters are coming from. That this person became obsessed with this one house.
He evolved, yeah.
So I feel like that's probably the best explanation of what's going on, maybe. But there's a point where Bobby Cannavale and Naomi Watts confront this teacher who is now long since retired, has this young Asian wife, and he confronts them at the grocery store. And there are so many things Bobby Cannavale's character does that don't make sense for someone who's a lawyer.
Yes, and that character of the teacher is played by Michael Nouri of Flashdance fame.
Oh.
And same with what he does with the local police chief, played by, I thought was kind of a great Christopher McDonald.
Well, yes. So then the police chief, Jennifer Coolidge plays a realtor who immediately something's not right because she's being very aggressive with Naomi. Like, I want to be your friend. I want to list your house. Oh, you're having trouble with the house. Weird things are happening. Oh, maybe your husband's cheating on you because you're sexless.
After she just sold them the house, too.
Right. So then it's like, oh, she wants this house and is trying to get them to sell it for much less than they paid. Mm-hmm. So her intentions, and then at a point, we see her canoodling with the local detective.
At the country club.
So then Bobby and Naomi attack them. Like, you're the ones responsible for the letters and harassing us. And then basically that gets debunked. But that detective, on more than one occasion, he tells them, like, I'm not going to do my job. And I have buddies in every department in the like neighboring counties and the FBI, and we're not going to help you. Like, okay, that just seems so illegal. And then to be telling this to a lawyer, it's like, couldn't you file like complaints? And
yes, I mean, you should have used his business acumen, Bobby Cannavale, and said like, oh well, I'm going to get you on that. But then the second time Christopher McDonald does that, because Jennifer Coolidge tells Naomi Watts, oh, I'm getting regular D, but I can't tell you who it is. And then of course we figure out it's Christopher McDonald. And then when Jennifer Coolidge is being harassed and she calls him, he's like, I don't appreciate that you made fun of me because I have ED.
This dialogue. Okay, then there's a moment. There's a young man, a black guy, who I thought looked like Sway Lee, but he is like, he installs like surveillance equipment. So then there's this whole narrative of maybe he's the Watcher because he has access to everything that's going on in the house. And he's 19, I believe, and he's being sexual kind of with their daughter who's only 16. And Bobby Cannavale's character makes a huge deal of it, like calls the police, saying like, you know, this 19-year-old's like being intimate with my daughter. And then the police are like, well, he's 19, she's 16, that's not illegal here. And I just thought, again...
Yeah, wouldn't you...
Like, you're a lawyer, wouldn't you think to look this up and... I know it seems maybe nitpicky, but not really, because the entire, like, the thing that's driving this plot forward is that Bobby Cannavale's trying to investigate these odd things that are happening, and he's going down every avenue. He's hired a PI. You would think that he would approach it in a more methodical way.
Well, and then it drops the ball, and I think what it's trying to set up is he's so obsessed with what's going on in the house that he's not having sex with his wife, who's trying to engage him on more than one occasion, but he's and also is distracted and obsessed with his daughter's budding sexuality, which is weird and creepy. But the character you reference, his name is Dakota, played by Henry Hunter Hall. Okay.
The craziest part of this story is the private detective / jazz singer / woman who's terminally ill with cancer. She gets... Okay. Every time she speaks, it's like she has this like outpouring of exposition.
It's a floodgate, yeah.
I mean, it's impossible. It's just impossible how much information she knows about everything, and she's just spitting it out in a way that's just like, it was fun.
It was fun. She's played by Noma Dumezweni.
It's just so unbelievable.
Yeah.
But her storyline culminates with she gets, is about to die. It's like she's on her deathbed in the hospital. And she tells Bobby Cannavale's character, I need to tell you something. Everything that happened to you, it was me. I did it. And she gives this elaborate story of all the things she did. Like, there's a moment where the surveillance footage catches Bobby Cannavale's character in bed with another woman who's not Naomi Watts. And she explains how she set that up and snuck the woman through the basement. And she explains all of it. Mm-hmm. Like in a 7-minute scene, all of it.
I had to sell the house because I went to Mexico for my cancer treatment, which really makes no sense.
And my ex-husband took all my like the alimony payments and blah blah blah. But then he left me this money. Like it's super elaborate. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay. But then Bobby goes to visit a neighbor,
Margo Martindale,
and she's like, there aren't that many black people in this neighborhood, and definitely that black lady did not ever live in that house you live in. Mm-hmm. So then it's like, oh, she's lying. Then they go visit the PI's daughter because they're at her funeral, and the daughter's like, yeah, she talked about you all a lot. And then they tell her what she said, and she's like, okay, my mom was lying. She told me that she was going to lie to you because she felt bad for you. So she wanted to give you closure, and she didn't want to die with an open case. It is just so frustrating because it's so over the top, which is fun, but then it also negates so many things that it doesn't explain. So we still don't know how that random lady got into bed with Bobby Cannavale. Mm-hmm. She also explains, like, there's a person who used to live in the house who was married, but his wife committed suicide, who one day shows up at the house telling Bobby Cannavale, like, I used to live here.
He meets him in public.
And then Bobby sees that he's an actor, like in some drug commercial. Mm-hmm. So he thinks, oh, this guy was hired. Mm-hmm. But then we find out that he really did live in the house. I don't know. I hated that moment in the series, that it offers up a full explanation and then takes it back, but then doesn't give us anything for a lot of the key things.
Yes.
It just, I don't know. I was so let down by that.
I also find I'm sometimes distracted by key wardrobe moments and production design tidbits in Ryan Murphy production sometimes, much like in The Prom. There's a lot of like cream and off-white colors in this.
Yeah, the color palette's interesting. And then for the PI, she's very stylish. She's always wearing like very specific gloves of different colors that doesn't get explained.
Like Sybil Shepherd.
Which is fine. I mean, she's a fun character, but I just think as a story, I was so let down. My final note is I think it would have been fun to introduce like a different kind of family into this house. Mm-hmm. Like maybe some people who are a little more, they have more fortitude. Like,
yes.
Like, oh, you want to send some letters to my house? You want to show up? Like, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I don't even know that I'd open those letters. They look...
But I think it does lend itself to like the fragility, and maybe not even like white fragility, just the fragility of like people in a certain tax bracket who feel like everything needs to be perfect and nothing should be a problem and I should be able to do what I want. That would have also been very interesting. And I think a good horror film could have been, what I kind of wanted this to be was there's no supernatural element. It's really this preservation society and all these other...
Well, this making America great again.
Well, just like these privileged people in this very fancy neighborhood who are making someone's life a living hell over their like pink marble countertops.
Yes.
I mean, that would be ironic and ridiculous
and fun,
and also super scary and frustrating because then it affects their finances and maybe it all culminates with these people having to file bankruptcy. And like I think that would be a slick story to tell, that there is no monster, there is no demon. It's literally your neighbors destroying your life and your finances. You end up your daughter runs away with this black man that you're nervous about, you file bankruptcy, you get divorced.
About that.
Oh yes. After Bobby finds out that his daughter is interacting with that security guy.
Because he steals her phone.
And sees that they sent sexy text. The daughter makes a video and posts it on social media saying that her dad is racist. I fell off the couch.
That was pretty good, yeah.
I was so heated. Like, that daughter, forget your college money. Forget getting a car at 16. Like, it's done. You get out of my house. I never want to touch you.
And then the daughter has a moment with Naomi Watts being like, I just can't help myself.
Oh, my God.
Like, when I'm angry, I will ruin you.
There would have been child abuse in that house if she did that to me.
But the mother just hugs her. Just like, yeah, not my... This is why I don't have children, because that's not what's going to happen in this house. But I find it funny, the hint that they give us is they do DNA testing on the saliva on the first two.
That's right.
And they determine that it's a woman.
Who licked the
envelopes.
Speaking of that, this series has... So Bobby Cannavale in his basement has the ubiquitous, like, marker boards, the cork boards with like all the evidence and literal strings attaching things. And there's even a point I think it's the final episode, where he says like, okay, before I take this down, let's just take one more look at the boards. Like this board didn't help. This board ruined your life, which could be the point. Is that people get so wrapped up.
I think that is part of the point, right? But reading those letters, the creepiest part of this series is that garbled voice that they do when the
narrating the letter,
which I kind of really liked. But some of the phrasing in those letters, like he's harassing this one old lady, saying her insolent preening has turned the house against her. I'm like, this is a homosexual. This is a homosexual writing these letters because
the Watcher's gay for sure.
And then the John Graff character who's in part of the National Preservation Society with Mia Farrow and his melodramatic rendering of trying to control the interior decorating in these people's houses. He's like, all this change, the banality of it. And it's like, well, that's kind of how I feel about this series. I was getting very strong vibes, perhaps in the past 2 episodes, of something like Pacific Heights, if you remember that film, where Michael Keaton can't afford this house that Melanie Griffith, and I'm forgetting who she's married to in that. Is it... Anyway, who rents from them and makes their life a living hell and ruins their San Francisco property. In the Pacific Heights neighborhood. And so Ryan Murphy directed, I think, the first 2 episodes, and then he has other people in his wheelhouse, like Max Winkler did an episode. But it's nice to see Jennifer Lynch, daughter of David Lynch, who directed a couple of Dahmer episodes, and Paris Barclay, who I think has one of the best moments in television with episode 6 of Dahmer this year. It's nice to see them, but I think the material that they're given with is just, again, this is just a soap opera.
Yeah, it's trashy fun, like I said, and I was being very reactive to the screen, which is worth something.
Oh, Mia Farrow saying, because we think Margo Martindale and her husband are dead, and then it turns out they're not. Like their kid, they were on vacation and their kid killed 2 people that looked like them and put them in the house so we could collect insurance money. But Mia Farrow, who's castigating Bobby Cannavale for not going to the funeral, she's like wide-eyed and wondered, like, I don't know whose funeral I went to. And also a great moment is her screaming out her window, "How dare you!" to Bobby. I like that, yeah.
What would you give the series?
Overall, as a series and its endearing, contribution to our culture, 2.
I would give it 2.5. It's okay. I mean, it's fun, but it's also not the best writing. So it's just kind of like...
It's fun to a degree because it falls off a cliff. It sets up a cliff that it just falls off of.
I'm just so disappointed that it took us like in circles and circles and it amounts to nothing. But anyway, anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.